Hello, friends. The 871st day of the war between Russia and Ukraine continues. The Ukrainian military telegram channel Deep State reported that the Ukrainian Armed Forces drove the Russians out of the border village of Snitsky in the Kharkiv region. Let me remind you that on July 4, according to the Operational Tactical Group Kharkiv, a Russian sabotage and reconnaissance group entered the village. Snitsky is located on the border with Russia, but west of the current theater of military operations. According to Deep State experts, the enemy has been trying to accumulate infantry in the village for the past 2 weeks, but targeted liquidation work has yielded results. The enemy unit suffered heavy losses. At present, the Ukrainian Defense Forces have control over Snitsky. Geographical features and proximity to Russian territory allow the enemy to run into the village, so the cleanup is still ongoing. Now, the initiative is entirely with our units. Due to some restrictions, we cannot publish more footage from the village, but if something changes, we will definitely do so, the Telegram channel reports. In Makiivka, the enemy's advance is being recorded in the Liman area. The Ukrainian Armed Forces have published footage of strikes against the enemy in a house on Zaluzhny Street. The Russians are using the Zherebets River as an advantage and are trying to advance through residential areas towards the center of Makiivka. In the Siversk direction, the enemy has occupied most of Rozdilivka. The Russians have managed to gain a foothold along 3 streets and to the east of the village in an area up to 3 kilometers wide and 1.12 kilometers deep. The situation in the settlement is very difficult and dangerous. In the Bakhmut direction, in the Kalinivka area, the Ukrainian Armed Forces have repelled a number of enemy attacks. In the Orlova tract, the enemy is attempting to advance in small groups towards the Siversky Donetsk-Donbas channel. In the Klishchiivka area, according to footage received from the Ukrainian Armed Forces, the enemy is already present in the western part of the settlement. In the Toretsk direction, the enemy attacked from the settlement of Pivnishny in Zaluzhny and advanced about 800 meters. In the New York area, the Russians are expanding their flanks in the western direction. Russian troops have already advanced to the center of the settlement in the area of the neighboring village of Yurivka and continue to actively advance. The settlement and the adjacent village of Nelipivka are less than 5 kilometers from Toretsk, where a large garrison of the Ukrainian Armed Forces is stationed. At the moment, the Russian army is breaking through to Toretsk from 2 sides, from the east along the highway and from the south, through New York. The enemy is thus squeezing the Toretsk garrison of the Ukrainian army in a pincer movement to force it to defend itself in several directions. The capture of New York by the enemy will allow it to approach Toretsk from the south and create difficulties for the logistics of the Ukrainian Armed Forces units there. In the Pokrovsk direction, the enemy deployed serious forces and began to storm Novoslivka Persha. To the north and east of the settlement, the enemy advanced in an area up to 5 kilometers wide and to a depth of 1.2 kilometers. Later, another advance was reported in an area up to 1 kilometer wide and to a depth of 480 meters. Russian media and military telegram channels today began writing about the capture of the village of Yevhenii in the Berdyansk direction. First, footage was published of the installation of a Russian flag on the building of the former village council in the central part of the settlement. Later, a video appeared with a Russian flag in the northern part of Yevhenii. The General Staff reported today that in the area of Yevhenii and other neighboring villages, the Russians tried to break through the defense of the armed forces of Ukraine. The results of the attempt were not specified. In the latest update of the Deep State Telegram channel map, Yevhenii has completely come under enemy control. Meanwhile, the Czech Republic will send another 50,000 rounds of ammunition to Ukraine by the end of the summer, President Petr Pavel said. Then, as Czech media write, Ukraine will receive 80,000 to 100,000 shells per month from September until the end of the year. Let me remind you that the first 50,000th batch of shells, purchased on the Czech initiative, arrived in Ukraine in June. It has become known that the former commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Zaluzhny, has assumed his duties as the Ukrainian ambassador to Britain. I presented copies of my credentials to the Vice Marshal of the Diplomatic Corps, accredited to the Royal Palace, the head of the Structural Unit for Protocol of the Foreign Office Victoria Busby, the former commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, reported. Friends, this channel exists solely thanks to your support. If you have the opportunity and desire to support the channel, I will be very grateful to you. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.